So all of this started in 2017, roughly. It was my 40th birthday. Prior to that, almost all of our holidays had consisted of going camping in my husband's camper van. Don't get me wrong, loved it, loved the camper, loved going camping, but it was an 1978 V-dub, not really built for comfort, especially not long term, and not really built for speed either. So we would go away, but we would try and stay local quite a lot. And if we were going further afield, that would be like a longer holiday. So if we wanted to go and see his family in Glasgow all the way from Pembrokeshire, for example, it would take us 3 days to get there. And we'd stop along the way. So we hadn't had a foreign holiday since we met. My 40th birthday was rapidly approaching, and I put my foot down and said, I want to go on a foreign holiday. Now, he hates crowds, he hates hotels, he hates airports. So that was tricky. But I knew that if I got it right, there would be the probability of more foreign holidays at some point in the future, and if I got it wrong, game over. So I chose a hotel in Croatia. I wanted to go to Croatia desperately. We both loved Game of Thrones. And I found the most amazing hotel that was on an island, and it was the only hotel on the island. It was also adults only, so no screaming children. It was early season, so my birthday is May, and it was, I think, week 1 of the season, so it was very quiet. It was also quite a small hotel, and it had accommodation in blocks, like little apartment blocks, all set up this hillside. So I think there was like 6 or maybe 12 rooms per block, and we had our own little private garden area. So it wasn't that crowded, and it was all inclusive, and it had several bars, including an amazing rooftop bar with beautiful views over the ocean. It was right on the beach, had a small pool. It was great. The only thing is, neither of us are really pool people. We're not really the type to sit around in the hotel. We're both quite active when we're on holiday, and we want to go and do things and see things. So being on an island, that kind of meant that almost every day started and ended with a boat trip of some sort. So the public ferry only ran at that point, I think, 3 times a day because it was early season. So sometimes we would get there was like a little motorboat taxi that would take you. There was the ferry. There were also day trips that we booked direct from the hotel that had various different boat rides. So we went on one that was like a 3-island trip. So that was a bigger motorboat. And then we went on Dubrovnik by night, which is this absolutely massive hulk of an old, drafty, wooden fishing boat that just rocked about like nobody's business. And because it was Dubrovnik by night, it was quite cold. In early May, the sea breeze is bitter. So everybody was shivering, and almost everybody was throwing up because of the motion of the boat. And we loved it. So we came back from that holiday, and a very good friend, Shirley, who I worked with, had been out in Croatia at the same time as us. She knew how important this holiday was. She knew that if it went well, great. If it didn't, game over for foreign travel. And we got back, and we were chatting, making a cup of tea in the kitchen at work. And she'd also been in Croatia at the same time as us. We'd actually tried to meet up, but the boat she was on couldn't get to our island because it was not set up for sailboats. It was too rocky for her to get very close. And the times we'd been in Dubrovnik, she was away sailing, so it hadn't happened. But we were chatting about our respective experiences. And I cannot overstate this enough. that holiday was amazing. We had the best time. We did various things, as I say. We got the public ferry and we went off and we did our own Game of Thrones tour. We weren't going to pay a fortune for somebody to walk around and point things out to us. It was much more fun to figure out for ourselves where the different locations were. We did a day trip to Bosnia, which was just mind-blowing. It was just incredible. We spent one day where we walked the entire perimeter of the island and actually found this really amazing little restaurant in a tree the other side of the island and had lunch. It was just magic. So chatting away, and I explained to her we'd had this amazing time, but actually the thing that Ray had enjoyed the most was being on the water, and that every day had started with a boat trip. And she just casually said, have you thought about going on a sailing holiday? And I said, no, we don't sail, don't be ridiculous. And she said, no, you don't have to. And so she told us about sailing holidays, who do all sorts of flotilla holidays in Greece. And at the time, you didn't have to have any experience or qualifications. That has changed now slightly. And you do need to have some, but they can also do qualifications with you, or you can pay to have somebody with you to sail your boat until you've got some experience. But I digress. So she said, you should check them out because obviously you're on the water, but also you're on your own boat, so you have your own accommodation. You don't have to share with anyone. And it's up to you how much you socialise. And so I sent off for the brochure and I relayed the conversation to Ray, thinking I'd maybe get a bit of pushback on the idea of another foreign holiday so soon, but he really surprised me by being all ears. So when the brochure arrived, we pored over it for hours. There were so many different amazing looking holidays. They all looked fantastic. We wanted to do them all. But we opted for what they call the sheltered waters of the Ionian. And now that we know a bit more, it is truly very sheltered. So we chose South Ionian to begin with. And so that meant that we flew into Kefalonia. And this was the year after my 40th. So by this point it was 2018 and late on in 2018 because, as I say, we always seek value for money and September, October was like half the price of summer. So we'd opted for that, and we opted for 2 weeks because 2 weeks was much better value of money than a week. And it never dawned on us that we might not enjoy it. And maybe a week would have been better so that we weren't stuck on a boat for 2 weeks. But hey, it all worked out in the end. So we looked through, we decided on the holiday that we wanted to go on and we booked it. And then we sat and patiently waited for over 12 months. And then we went, and again, amazing holiday. It wasn't all plain sailing. It was awful at times. There was a Medicane that year, which is a hurricane in the Mediterranean. They're quite unusual. They're getting more common because of climate change, but that one was the first for a long time and it hit really hard. We were stormbound for 2 days, and on the other side of Greece, the company actually had 3 boats sink, so it was bad. But despite everything, we had an amazing time. Now, I should preface this by saying I've always wanted to go travelling, and Ray had done that. He'd done a year in his camper van before we met around Europe. He had no desire to go travelling again. But I had a burning desire. And when we came back from that holiday, then I can't even remember if it was the day we got home or if it was the next day. It might have been the next day after he came back from work. But he just walked in and he said, let's sell up and go sailing until the money runs out. And that was where this crazy idea originated. So you'll need to come back for part 2 to find out what happened next.